Hello and welcome to the Rambler podcast. My name is Jimmy Smith and I am your host. I am the Assistant Vice President of Development and Strategic Initiatives here at Cathedral Prep and a proud member of the Prep Class of 2011. So we have a great episode to share with you today, but before we get into that, I want to make you aware that registration for our Legacy Gala event is now open, which is being held on March 16th at the Bayfront Convention Center, just a few weeks away. Our Legacy Gala event is the premier fundraiser of the year, where all the money raised at this event goes directly to our students, helping them enrich their experience by providing expanded programs in academics, the arts, and athletics, as well as a big focus of getting needs-based tuition assistance and scholarship support for our students. So I know I'm personally very excited for the event, and I'm also really excited to share with you that we're going to be introducing mobile bidding for the event this year as well. So regardless if you're able to attend the event in person or not, we still invite you to be able to participate by taking a look at all the auction items that will be available on mobile bidding through that platform, and help support the school in the mission here. So please go to www.cathedralprep.com/legacygala. On that page, you're going to find information for the event. There's registration, information about the mobile bidding opportunities, and some other ways that you can support the school and our students as well. So please check that out, and we look forward to seeing you on March 16th, coming up here in a couple weeks. So now let's get into this episode of the podcast featuring Libby Waltman. Hello everyone, and welcome to episode number 47 of the Rambler podcast, where we are passionate about sharing what makes Cathedral Prep the standard of excellence. I'm your host, Jimmy Smith. On this episode, I'm really excited and thrilled to have Libby Waltman on as a guest. She is graduated from Villa Maria Academy in 2003, and then she went on to the University of Pittsburgh, where she received her degree in accounting. Libby will be beginning her second season as the Chief Financial Officer of the Pittsburgh Pirates after being promoted from her previous role as the organization's Senior Director of Financial Accounting and Reporting. Libby began her career as a member of the Pirates organization as a staff accountant in 2008 before being promoted to Manager of Financial Accounting and Reporting in June of 2013. Prior to joining the Pirates, Libby began her professional career as an associate at PwC, which is the second largest professional services network in the world. Libby also serves as treasurer of the Pirates Charities, the philanthropic arm of the Pittsburgh Pirates. Libby is married to her husband Dan, and together they have twin sons, Matthew and Daniel. Libby, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much. And we just got you on the speaking circuit today. I tell you, we just had our quarter sessions, and you were speaking there, and got you on the podcast today. So we're keeping you busy.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. Glad to give back to Prep. Have a lot of history with the Prep and Villa communities, so happy to be here.
Well, it was actually pretty neat. I got to give a shout out to Dave Slomsky. It was probably last April. I think he went to opening day for the Pirates. He calls me, I think, the day after. He's like, Jimmy, you got to have Libby Waltman on as a guest of the podcast. She's the CFO of the Pirates. I was just at the game with her dad. Like, you got to have her on. So I got to give Dave a shout out there for letting me, in on the new position you had from last season. But I'm sure pretty cool opportunity, right? Being the CFO for the Pirates.
It is. When I always dreamed of working for the Pirates. I grew up loving baseball, loving Pittsburgh sports teams. And that was my dream job, to work for the Pirates someday. And I was fortunate enough back in 2008 when I was 23 to get hired as a staff accountant. And never did I think, this is the career trajectory I would be on. I thought, I'll give it a few years and we'll see what opportunities come up. And, I was a little worried that it might lose some of the fun in baseball for me by working in it every day.
Right.
So I never had these goals of long, high trajectory CFO potential. And then, 5 or 6 years into it, I realized hey, this could be my forever job. Baseball's still fun. I still enjoy it. So, yeah, it's pretty awesome.
well, I don't want to compare working at Prep to being the CFO of the Pirates, but I actually had a similar thought. I was like, if I start working at Prep, will that like love of the school that I had change at all? And would I still want to work there after a few years? Just the experiences I have, I just loved my time at Prep. And, being on the other side of it is actually a pretty neat experience, being that you kind of see the internal workings of how the organization works, how decisions are made, how to actually help advance the school or the organization as you're a part of there with the Pirates. And one other thing I got to say, too, I mean, looking out the window here, sun's shining. It feels like it's about baseball season, too.
It is. Pitchers and catchers report next week. So,
that's exciting.
Yeah, we're ready for the new season.
Yeah. I was a baseball player myself, so this time of the year is when, we would start doing those off-season, probably earlier than this, but off-season workouts, getting ready for tryouts coming out in March. And it's just an exciting time of the year for me, at least being a baseball enthusiast as well.
Yep.
No, I mean, it's really cool to hear you talk about, I was there for your quarter session speech, a little bit more formal of than this is, but, just talking about what Villa meant to you, the experiences you had, how it prepared you in your career. What was it even for you that made you decide you wanted to go to Villa? I guess let's start there.
Yeah, it was definitely family tradition. I don't want to say it was mandatory, but it was highly recommended. But I have two older sisters, both attended Villa. My grandma went to Villa, a lot of aunts, cousins, all the men in my family went to Prep. So definitely wanted to be part of that tradition. And, the more I thought about what's important to me, I felt like Villa was the right high school that would check those boxes for me.
Yeah. And like you said, your family being, all Prep or all Villa, it's like a family tradition, right?
Yep.
I have to ask, I'm taking a little stab in the dark here. When you found out about, the consolidation of the school, I think your sister, Katie, was a board member at the time, so she obviously had been a part of those conversations. What was kind of your initial reaction to hearing about, the change that was going to be happening?
Yeah. I think initially it was sad. You think about all the good memories you have in that sisterhood and at the building, and you just worry that those traditions and those emotions are kind of going to go away and the next generation won't get to experience them. My sister and I talked about it that day, and we joked we're both very practical people, and we're able to put logic over emotion a lot of time, which is probably one of the strengths that has gotten me this far in my career.
Sure.
Is I can keep a pretty level head even in a crisis.
Yeah.
And so, I think we all understood this needs to happen for there to be some outlet like Villa for the next generation of girls.
Right.
And obviously Prep's a great school, and I think, the technology center and everything that went along with that merger are great opportunities. And I think they've done a good job of trying to keep the Villa traditions and Villa spirit alive in the combined school.
Yeah, absolutely. And it did change the dynamics from being just a brotherhood or just a sisterhood to those are still alive today in this school, but it's more of a family atmosphere. It's great to see the young men and women walking through the halls together. And it's definitely different, but it's a good different. It was a change that was needed.
Yep.
And overwhelmingly, you talk to the students about how their experiences is. They're all thrilled and happy about it. So. And that's what's most important, right, is the kids that are in the building now.
Yeah.
When you look back at your time at Villa, what were some of the things that really made your experiences, special there?
Yeah. I was at Villa at a great time. So it was early 2000s. I played water polo, which it was the second year, I think, that Villa had a water polo team. So we went from being, not great to my junior year, we qualified for the state tournament.
Yeah, wow.
And so just being part of that growth process, and any water polo player can relate to this. It's such a time commitment because there's a limited number of teams that we were every Friday piling in vans and driving east on I-80 to play our competition. And that was such a team bonding experience for me. And to this day, my best friends are girls from Villa who I played water polo and swam with. Going to Pitt, I think I went to school the closest to Erie of my group of friends. We all kind of ventured out.
Yeah.
And, but to this day, we all keep in touch. And when we see each other, it's like nothing changed. And so I think it's that network of women that I built while I was here. And I think just even the fact that, we did all venture out. We did move away for a little bit. Villa really gave us that confidence to be able to find our own path and figure out what we wanted to do. And, some people have moved back and, ended up in Erie. Some people live in other countries.
Right.
But it's pretty awesome to have that type of network. I also, I was thinking about it this morning, and our girls basketball team went to states my junior and senior year. Unfortunately, we were runner-up both years, but we went to Hershey a couple times, which that's an experience a lot of people don't get to experience in their high school years.
Right.
Definitely very activity and sport based. We're always keeping busy, always just trying to find that social aspect outside of the classroom.
Yeah.
I mean, class is great, learned a lot, and you definitely got the fundamentals and all of that, but it's really the relationships and the social aspects that I think were probably the most impactful for me.
Yeah, those are certainly some of the things that I know for myself too. I look back on my time at prep, and you do recall, of course, the great teachers you have and the experiences in the classroom, but a lot of times those special bonds with your classmates are made, in activities or sports or traveling, as you said, in the vans and doing all those things that you look back on now when I'm sure you catch up, and it's just, you laugh about those times. And those are the things that do make it, a special time for sure.
Yep.
Memories that last a lifetime, as they say. No, I appreciate, again, just reflecting with us for a bit about your time at Villa and coming in and speaking with the kids today about, what that time at, this institution meant to you. And it's pretty cool, to hear about where your career has gone. Obviously, I read the bio before we, introduced you there. I think one of the things that's really impressive, of course, the title CFO is great. That's really cool. And also, I think what's all equally impressive is just how long you've been at the Pirates organization and committed to that, maybe not long-term at first, as you said, but just the longevity of being at one organization and, working your way up. Can you talk to us, as a lot of the, listeners of the podcast are, growing in their professional career, and aspiring leaders and want to be better in their field. Can you talk to us about the things that you've learned in your journey to success as you've climbed up that ladder within the Pirates organization?
Yeah. I think for me, there's two major benefits to having been at the Pirates for as long and being on the career path that I have been on, which is, one, I learned everything from the ground up, right? So, whether it's we have some turnover within our department, or we're reviewing a process and just understanding why do we do this the way we do it, I generally can answer that question just because I've been there for so long or was a part of creating that process 5 or 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Or like I said, if someone, we have some turnover and we need to fill in a little bit, it's like, hey, yeah, I used to do this. I can do this, right? The other really neat part of it is just the relationship building, right? People talk to you different when you're the staff accountant than when you're the CFO.
Right.
And I'm fortunate that the Pirates, we do have a lot of long tenured employees. COVID kind of threw a wrench in that, and we have newer people now than we historically have, but there's still a big group of long tenured employees who, I've known for 15, 16 years, and they feel comfortable coming to talk to me about things, which as an executive, especially in finance where, there's a lot of risk, it's great to have those relationships and have that comfort level with my colleagues where they know, oh, I'm going to go talk to Libby, and they don't think of me as this corner office
Right.
executive they can't come talk to.
Yeah.
It's also helped not just understand the fundamentals of my department and how the finance department works, but just how the whole organization works. Over my 15 years there, I've been asked to get involved in, an initiative with almost every department. So just having that, grassroots knowledge of how the organization works, what every department is trying to achieve, and being an ally for all of those departments to help reach their goals is something that I think if you come in as a manager or above without having that background and without having those relationships, it's harder to gain that trust. It's harder to build those relationships. So I'm really fortunate.
Right. No, I can certainly see that. Just thinking about, the value you can provide at an organization, right? Obviously, you're being hired because of the skills you possess, but then also you already having that familiarity in a lot of different areas within the organization. I think for people listening, the tidbit I would take from that is just a matter of whatever position you're in, do it to the best of your ability, get to know people, network, and you never know, to your point with your path, there's times you have to fill in for other roles and you're like, yeah, I did that 5 years ago, or this is why we created this 10 years ago, and maybe it's time to change it now, or maybe it's fulfilling its purpose. So a lot of that value that you can carry by being at an organization for so long, and to your point, the trust factor, right? If you're stepping into CFO of the Guardians organization right now, you don't know necessarily everybody on the team. It takes time to develop that, versus the role now, you know those people and they trust you already.
Yeah. I do make an effort now, especially with management. If we have a new leader coming into the organization, I always make sure to reach out to them and introduce myself, walk them through, how our budget process works, what our monthly financial reporting documents look like, how we generally will work together, what I need from them, what my expectations are, just because I definitely want my department to be seen as an ally. Like I said, we want to help you. We are not an obstacle. We're not trying to be a hindrance. I know a lot of times with finance and budgets, that's how people look at us. But I want to build those relationships with people and want to be able to help them and help, because ultimately it's helping the Pirates get better.
Right.
And that's one of the really cool things about working for a baseball team is we all have the same goal, which is to have a better team and win championships. So I know that we can be a resource to the other departments within the organization.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such an important factor to have, and certainly like an organization like the Pirates, where you're all working for that common goal together to get there. Can you talk about a moment in your career that maybe you considered a turning point or a breakthrough, just something that you've experienced along your way that really helped that?
Yeah. I would say in 2013, we had some unexpected turnover within the finance department. So I had been the staff accountant for 4.5 years at that point. And again, I was happy at the Pirates. I liked the job I was doing. But my manager went out unexpectedly. And I was given the opportunity to kind of step into his role.
Yeah.
And in addition to that opportunity, for the real Pirate fans out there, 2013 was a great year to be with the Pittsburgh Pirates. We, ended our drought of winning seasons, and we went to the wild card game, and we won the wild card game and went to the division series. So there was a lot of new stuff happening at the Pirates that hadn't happened in a long time. And it was fun and exciting. And I was fortunate that I was given the opportunity to take on that manager role and be part of that and really add value as we were all kind of figuring things out as it happened. And, it's interesting in sports with like a postseason or playoffs, you really don't know if you're going to be playing tomorrow. So you're planning cautiously, but trying not to commit to anything because you might not win. So don't spend the money if you if you don't need to. But so that was just a really challenging but good challenging year, and fun and exciting. And I was fortunate, again, that they trusted me to give me that opportunity to fill in as the manager. And then obviously, like, everything kind of went from there.
Yeah. Well, that certainly would be a time of definitely learning and a breakthrough, right? I mean, was that the year that the fans were chanting Cueto?
It is. Yes.
Oh my gosh, that's one of my favorite favorite like clips. If anybody doesn't know what I'm talking about, go to YouTube, type in Johnny Cueto, Pittsburgh Pirates 2013, because that like gives me chills thinking about it. I get chills when I watch that. It was just such a cool time. I'm a Pirates fan also, to be a part of that, fandom of watching the game and just seeing that happen. That moment lives down in infamy for Pirates history.
Yeah, definitely a night I'll never forget. It was awesome. Andrew McCutcheon told us all to wear black, so everyone wore black, and we had a blackout, and a couple home runs, won the game, and just couldn't have scripted it any better.
Yeah. Do you, like, CFO of the Pirates, I mean, I don't want to say you have to pinch yourself sometimes, but I mean, like, for everyday people like me over here who, like, only see these people on ESPN or on TV, I mean, you're basically working with these people throughout the day, seeing them all, do batting practice, whatever it is. And is it surreal at times for you?
It is. It still is. I mean, honestly, sometimes I kind of laugh to myself when everyone's like, "Oh, what's your position?" And it does seem surreal to say this. I think there is at least once a year I have that moment of, going outside in the ballpark, watching batting practice, whatever it is, where it's like, holy cow. And I think because I had that gradual buildup to it, it sometimes kind of got lost of that, like, I didn't have that initial shock of like, hey, guess what? I just got hired as this role. It was kind of like, well, that's the next step. And but every once in a while, there is definitely those moments of this is, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Definitely. And, I can imagine a position like yours, I mean, you're forecasting things out, you're setting short-term, long-term goals. In terms of like just broad level but professional advice for people, how do you go about a goal-setting process, whether you're looking at short-term, long-term? What advice would you have for?
I can definitely answer the short-term component of that. I think last year being my first year as CFO, there were definitely some growing pains, and there were some areas where I think my prior boss, who retired at the end of 2022, he was doing more work in areas than any of us realized. And so then, transition happens, and it's like, oh, that actually takes way more time than I thought it did. So as I went into year 2, it was like, okay, I know what went well last year. I know what didn't go well last year. These are my goals for 2024, right? And it's to improve on these areas that were my pain points last year, and here's how we're going to do that. Longer term's a little harder for me, just because I think, as I've accepted that I plan on being at the Pirates for as long as I can be, I'm not, I don't have these big aspirations of like, oh, I'm trying to get this next, to the next level personally, right? But we do, as an organization, we do like financial projections 3 years at a time. And it is fun to think about, where are we going to be in 3 years? Right? So I try to, obviously we have ticket sales budgets and expense budgets and everything that go along with that, but I try to think about my department and what our role is in the organization and what value can we bring to that. So as the organization's doing their 3-year planning, like, I know where we need to be spending our time and focusing on.
A lot of different I'm sure people pulling you different directions of areas that they want to know either what their budget is, what can they spend, what can't they do. A lot of different areas. Besides just the players, there's a lot of other parts of an organization as big as the Pirates happening and demanding your attention. And it seems like you can be reflective, naturally season to season, because there's a clear season for the Pirates, right?
Yep.
So, just encourage anybody listening that identify those times throughout the year you reflect on, maybe quarterly, of how you're performing or what you could do better. Because, certainly as we're all growing in our roles, to your point, there's things that last year you just know that going into this year you need to fine tune and do a little better or whatever that is to help improve. And, as in your roles, with the Pirates, what are some of the unique challenges you face, like being in the sports finance industry?
Yeah. I feel like the past 3 or 4 years there has been something every year. So, 2020, obviously, COVID hit. That's not unique to the Pirates or sports.
Right.
That hit everyone. But then coming back out of that in 2021, for the first half of the year, we had to seat people 6 feet apart and, in pods of no more than 4 or whatever the regulations were. And those regulations were changing every single week. And so we were trying to figure out how can we give our fans the best possible experience under these constantly changing regulations. And, finally, I think it was around 4th of July, everything opened up and that, we were able to just say, okay, just come to the ballpark. But that was a really challenging year, not just, financially, but logistically. And everyone was, keeping that morale, keeping that passion. It's hard when you feel like I just did all this work and now I'm getting new information, right?
Right, yeah.
And then 2022, the baseball fans might remember this, but the collective bargaining agreement with the players had expired, and we went into a work stoppage for 3.5 months, and spring training was delayed. The season ended up starting a little late, and so, in my role, that's a big deal, right?
Yeah, right.
So, that's something that's unique to the sport. It happens every 5 years. Normally, we can avoid the work stoppage, but sometimes you can't.
Right.
And you have to, our goal as the Pirates, when that is happening, is to keep everyone still excited about Pirates baseball. We know it's going to come back, right? So we just try to remind our fans that, hey, we'll be back.
Yeah.
And we want you here when that time comes. And then, not to get too technical, but in 2023, there were a lot of TV issues across not just Major League Baseball, but NHL, NBA with the regional sports networks.
Right.
Some of them declaring bankruptcy, some of them just choosing not to be in that line of service anymore. So that was, that's been dominating conversations for over a year now.
Right.
And we're not totally out of those conversations yet, but we have, a plan to keep getting our fans Pirates baseball, which is the most important thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so those are some of the things that are unique.
That certainly is unique right there, and that's probably, for us, that could just be a little headline we see, but you're in the thick of it in terms of the contracts and how all this stuff works. I can only imagine the amount of effort and time you have to dedicate towards just that part of what you oversee, with the organization. Yeah.
Learn more about media and how different types of broadcasts work and all of that stuff more than I ever thought I would.
That's funny. So we've kind of talked about some of the challenges, that come with the role. What are some of the most rewarding aspects of your position with the Pirates?
Yeah. So, we already talked about the 2013 year. I think, working for a team when they are winning, there is no better feeling. You go into work, everyone's talking about the game last night. Everyone's, excited, planning for what's next. But even in, obviously I've been there for a lot of down years too.
Yeah.
And it's still baseball, right? I work in a ballpark. I go to PNC Park every day for work. the past couple years, we have done some major renovations around the ballpark, which are fun to see, right? There's a ton of planning, a ton of work that goes into them behind the scenes before they even officially get approved and you start the construction.
Yeah.
And then when it's ready to go for opening day, that's a pretty awesome feeling. One of the things I always say about that I love about working in baseball is everything is very tangible, right? Like, we're buying bats, we're paying players, we're building concession stands. I think in this day and age where there's so many like tech companies and industries and fields where you're in an office processing and doing accounting work, and it might be a really cool company, but like you never see the finished product.
Right.
And it's been really cool, especially over the past couple of years, to see, we are trending up, and we won 14 more games last year than we did the year before.
Yeah.
I think that's the right number.
Yeah.
But somewhere in that neighborhood. And so even last year, didn't quite get that winning record, but significant improvement from the prior year. And I think that's what we thought we would see, and that's where we hoped we'd be. And then now this year, expectations are a little higher. So it's fun to see how that plays out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I could imagine, like to your point, you guys get to see the whole organization coming together as it is. A pretty neat experience for sure. And, to your point, just talking about, the enjoyment of the game of baseball, and now you get to be on the side of it working, for the organization with all these different opportunities and whatnot. Pretty cool experiences for sure.
Yeah.
When you look at, like, being an executive too, so separate from just your functioning role as CFO, but being an executive, being in a leadership position at the Pirates, what are some of the qualities that you believe are essential to be a successful leader?
Yeah, I think I mentioned it a little earlier. I think just being level-headed, well-balanced, being able to, not panic when things are bad and not get, too excited or too complacent when things are good. Just, keeping that focus on what's important, what's my role here, what value can I add to this situation. I also think just being adaptable is very important. We joke, we take it's one of the types of personality tests. It's called the DISC assessment, and every letter stands for a different personality type.
Yeah.
And C's are like contemplative, and that's most accountants are C's. You're detail oriented. You like to analyze all the information before you make a decision. You like to just take your time and think through it and not answer right on the spot.
Yeah.
That's why I asked you to send me some, thoughts in advance, because I'm not great right on the spot. So most of my finance department, we have a lot of C's.
Yeah.
Well, we have a couple who are on the other end of the DISC spectrum, and they're a little bit more, just, hey, let's go do this right now. Let's a little more outspoken, a little more outgoing, and they just have all these ideas, and sometimes it's like, whoa, I need you to calm down a little bit.
That's me. Yeah, I'm more of the idea, let's go do it right now. Yeah, what do we have to think about?
So, when I have to be a leader to those people,
right.
I have to put on a different leadership hat, right?
Yeah,
I can't treat them the same way I treat my C's, which is, in my normal comfort zone. And I think one, accepting that and not just expecting everyone to conform to my style, but realizing, hey, to get the most out of these people, I need to be adaptable and adjust my leadership style, because it's not just within my department, that's organization-wide, right?
Yeah.
Like a lot of sales and marketing are those idea people, right?
Yeah.
Our facilities team, they're a lot of the D's, which is driven, which is just, hey, we got to make this decision right now, which in their world,
right,
you do, right? Hey, there's an issue at the gate with lines are backing up. We need to figure out how to get these people in. Okay, here's what we're going to do. You don't have time to think about it. And so if I just stay in my like C umbrella, I'm never going to be effective as I work with other departments. And then that doesn't do anyone any favors.
Yeah. Well, that was funny when you were talking about the personality types, because I'm totally that idea person. Like, let's just talk about it, let's go do it, and whatnot. But I have learned over the years to slow down, and I think to just really honing in on, developing myself as a leader. So if this was, 5 years ago, I'd probably be ready to jump on things. But now I'm kind of more, all right, let's consider this, let's process this, let's talk about it, and really evaluate that. And I would say, for, again, I kind of reference the listeners to this podcast, what you're talking about is so important when it comes to leadership. It's not just about you being the one out in front, making decisions, telling people, this is how we do it because it's how I am. You really do an effort to know how to work with people in different personalities, which that's essential, is meeting people with where they're at when it comes to leadership. So I would encourage anybody to just really, study personality types and learn what your own personality type is, and figure out how to work best with people, not just your own personality type, but other personality types.
Yeah, and that's what we, our people and culture department, who, runs these, not the test, but then also the education around it.
Yeah.
It's not meant to be an excuse, right? You can't say, oh, I'm a C, I need more time. It's meant to be self-aware and say, look, I'm a C, I'm dealing with an I. We're both going to have to come out of our normal comfort zones a little bit to make this work together.
Right. Self-awareness, that's the biggest key for sure.
Yes.
No, I appreciate you sharing that all. This has been really fun talking to you about all these different topics, things that I'm learning personally, just listening to you talk about some of this stuff. Just a couple other questions while we wind down on the podcast here, Phil, for you. Just kind of talking back to some of the decision-making, principles, and we talked about the goal setting, but when you do have the things that you're evaluating, regardless of which specific, whether it's the TV markets or all these different things that you're looking at, what are some of the values or principles that help guide your decision-making process?
Yeah, we try to think about what will give us some short-term growth but long-term value, right? There's a lot of opportunities where it might say, hey, you know what, maybe we have 2 sponsor opportunities and one is going to pay more than the other one, but long-term, we don't know that that's a company that we necessarily want to be aligned with, right? Or, on the flip side, we have this great company, they're a Pittsburgh brand. We think that we're like a very cohesive partnership.
Yeah.
But they can't give us a dollar amount we're looking for this year. Always trying to make sure that we're not losing sight of what's going to be best for us long term, just to hit some short term metrics. And I think, that's where our finance department comes in a lot, because, in sales, you can get very excited, like, hey, here's a really big number that is coming to me. And so finance, we try to put some of those guide rails on, like, okay, but, this is a 1-year deal. What happens after that? Or,
right.
And
asking the questions that I should be thinking of when I'm out there, right? Like, so I can relate to that. There's times where, you might get excited about a big number, whether it was a previous job I had for a sale or an opportunity for a sponsorship, even here with Prep at the event center or whatnot. Being a little bit more reflective of thinking the long term, okay, that's great for this year. What happens year 2 or year 3 with this contract or this, decision we're making? Just looking at the big picture for a second, when it is something new, something worth that you haven't done before, especially that you want to introduce.
Yep. And I think the same thing, it goes on the spending or the expense side as well. As every department has their priorities, and it's like, hey, we need this, and here's why. And they're all, you could buy all of them, and they're all great products and probably would add value, but you might not be able to do that every year, right?
Yeah,
so
right.
it's, I think I kind of see our department as like the, almost like the mediator of like, all right, let's talk through this. Tell me why this is what the Pirates need and what value this will bring to the Pirates. And I think, again, that level-headedness, those relationship skills, being able to be that person is an area where me and my team add value.
Yeah. One last question for you here on the professional side of things. What advice do you have for like younger professionals looking to achieve success, maybe even the level of which you've done?
Yeah, so the one thing I always tell people, so prior to joining the Pirates, I worked at PwC. I was a tax associate, and wasn't the most exciting or thrilling job doing, thousands of tax returns.
Yeah.
But I learned a lot there. They did a great job of just professional development and, how to send emails out to the groups and how, what type of grammar and what type of, how to, use different tones of your emotions in emails. And just a lot of those like corporate America skills that are important to have, I learned at PwC. My husband is still there, by the way. It's a great company, and they develop their people amazingly. And I actually go to him a lot on like leadership things, on like, hey, here's the situation I'm having. How would you handle this, right?
Right.
What I need to have this difficult conversation with someone. What advice do you have for me?
Right.
I lucked out that the Pirates had that job posting for a staff accountant. I went to Pitt. I had looked at the Pirates career page numerous times while I was in school. At the time, I mean, we're still a small department. We're 10 people.
Yeah.
At the time, it was probably like 6. I realized, like, hey, this might not happen, and it's not because of me. It's just because there's only going to be openings every so often, right?
Yeah.
I think nowadays I get a lot of college students coming and talking to me, and they think if they don't get a job in sports, like right out of school, that they're never going to get one. And so sometimes they might take a job that they don't really want to do just because it's in sports, or they go back and get a master's in sports management, which isn't a bad thing, but the reality is, like, in my job, it's probably not adding that much value.
Sure.
So I always encourage people, just take the best opportunity that's presented to you at the time. And it's okay, like, build up your skills. Everywhere is going to have something to teach you, good or bad.
Yeah.
And then just keep looking. If your dream is to work in sports, you don't have to get that day one out of college, right? You can. I was lucky. I only had to work for 2 years before I came across it. Some people, it's a lot longer than that, but that's still, it's, the door is never closed. So just, take the opportunities you're presented with. Don't get so like tunnel vision on, but this is what I want to do.
Right.
Because a lot of other doors are going to open up, and they might lead to the path that you're ultimately looking for.
Yeah, and I think it's easy for people to fall into the frame of mind where they just want immediate success right now.
Yes.
Because at this point in their life, they did what they had to do in grade school, get good grades, go to a high school, get into the college they want. It was all very sequential of like climbing up this ladder.
Yes.
And then you set your sights on this position, maybe being with the Pirates, for example, and it wasn't there yet. It could be easy to just get very discouraged and think to yourself at the time, well, this is never going to happen.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I can certainly see how, what you're saying is find the best opportunity, do the best at it, but keep that long-term, that goal that you want still in the forefront of your mind, because it could still happen.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, just one last question for you. This one's a bonus one.
Okay.
I didn't prep you on this one, but it's an easy one. So at the end of my podcast episodes with our alums, whether prep or Villa, I like to ask if you could go back in time and speak at your graduation, but knowing what you know now, what would you say to your classmates at that time?
Oh, geez. This isn't going to be the most eloquent, but it would be something around like, don't sweat the small stuff. I think, like you said, everything was very sequential for us here.
Yeah.
And you do this, and then you do this, and then you do this. And when something, you know, got thrown off a little bit, we all overreacted because we were, you know, at Villa, I was surrounded by a lot of people who worked really hard, right?
Yeah.
And so when
Yeah.
something didn't go your way, it was often like a huge deal, which
Right.
is probably true for like a lot of high schoolers, not just Villa, but,
Yeah.
you know, it's the age. And I think even in college, you know, everyone's experience at college is different. And I think there was so many things where it's like, either you get too invested in one area and then that doesn't work out. And it's like, oh no, what am I going to do? Right.
Yeah.
You know, there was at one point I was, you know, probably 2/3 of the way done with college where I was like, I don't know if I want to be an accountant. Like I was in a class that I didn't like and wasn't doing
Yeah.
well in, and I was like, accounting's not for me.
Right.
It's not true, right? I love being an accountant,
Yeah.
and not just because it's at the Pirates, but
Yeah.
I think it would be, yeah, just relax, you know, this is what I talked about in my speech, right? Take the challenges as they
Yeah.
come to you. They're only going to make you stronger. Not everything has to be perfect.
Yeah.
And like you have a great foundation, right?
Right.
That's what Prep and Villa did for us. They gave us those great foundations. You'll get through it, and just, you know, keep working, keep trying,
Yeah.
and you'll go far.
Well, and I love the message you gave the kids today, just talking about be willing to ask for help even.
Mm-hmm.
And that applies to whether you're in high school or college or even in the professional world. Reach out to people that could be a mentor of yours or somebody to help guide you. You mentioned even asking your husband for advice on
Yeah.
leadership or difficult conversations. It's to your point, you said it, I'm just repeating your words, it's not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength to
Yeah.
show that you're willing to come forward and say, I need help in this situation.
Yeah. I remember one time at Villa specifically, and, you know, I did pretty well in school. I got good grades, and
Yeah.
a lot of things came pretty easily to me. And I took the SATs, and there was a question that came up in the same type of question, but three times.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to solve it. And I was like, I mean, I would get, you know, however many points higher if I just knew how to solve this
Yeah.
question. And I remember I was like so nervous about asking my teacher for help because I normally didn't need to. And she was so excited to help me.
Yeah.
And it took her 5 minutes, and she's like, here's how you solve that type of problem. And I took the SATs a second time, and I knew how to do it. And it's
Right.
like, I mean, obviously I didn't know I needed to ask that question before
Yeah.
the first time I took it, but it's like, oh my gosh, that was so easy. And then I thought back about other times where it's like, I probably could have used that extra little bit of help,
Right.
but I was too insecure to ask for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's one of those things that you were able to get a better score in your SAT because you asked for help. But even professionally, I've learned that by asking people questions about things that they've either done before that I'm looking to do or whatever, it saves me time, honestly.
Yeah.
From, you know, I believe that we should be trying to do things that make mistakes and we fail because we can learn from that. But also, if we can save ourselves mistakes and failures by learning from other people's experiences, that's one of the things I love about this podcast is asking questions about things that you've learned through your journey and whatnot. So. Yeah, well, all good stuff. I really appreciate, you know, you coming up to Erie and speaking to the kids at quarter sessions today, go along with their antics of yelling for you to put it on. So for those of us that have gone to prep and know about the tradition, I don't know what year it started, but basically after quarter sessions, the speaker gets a gift of like a sweater or a shirt. And all the kids start yelling, put it on, because we want to see you try on your new gear, your new prep wear. And they at least prepped you that this was going to happen today, right?
Yes.
So she went along, Libby went along with it, put on her new prep shirt, and she was happy, and all the kids cheered for her for doing so. But that's a tradition that I don't know when it started, like I said, but it was when I was even a student here. So I appreciate you coming on and doing that, and then also being a guest of us with the podcast today. Really great things you shared with us, and I appreciate you taking the time and doing so.
All right. Well, yeah, I'm happy to be here. And yeah, thanks it was great questions. Made it easy for me.
Yeah, well, thanks, and best of luck with the baseball season. Will you go down to Florida for spring training at all?
Probably not this year. Some years, yes, some years, no.
Yeah.
It's hard with the little kids.
Yes.
So,
How old are yours, by the way?
they're twins, and they will be 6 in April.
Oh, fun time.
Yeah.
Are they getting into baseball this spring?
They are. They've done soccer a few years already, but this spring they're signed up for T-ball. So
Awesome.
we'll see. I don't know.
Fun times. Well, best of luck with the T-ball and all the way up to the majors this year for the season.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.